You know that feeling, right? When you fly from, say, LA to New York, you step off the plane and it's like, whoa, everything's different. The streets feel tighter, the buildings are older, the way people walk, talk, even dress. It's still America, but man, it can feel like you've landed on a completely different planet.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Why? Why do these two edges of the very same country feel so fundamentally different from each other? Okay, let's get into it. We're going to peel back the layers of history, technology, and culture that created this great American divide.
All right, so let's start with the basics, the stereotypes. You know them. The East Coast, old, dense, always in a hurry. And the West Coast, new, spread out, super casual. But here's the thing, these aren't just random ideas. There's a real, deep story behind why we see them this way. And check this out, the numbers totally back it up. In the Northeast, you've got something like 1,000 people packed into every square mile. 1,000. Now look at California, it's more like 250. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That one single fact explains so much about the vibe, the traffic, pretty much everything.
And it's not just how many people there are, it's the stuff around them. The typical home in Boston, built around 1963. In Seattle, try 1984. That's a whole generation of difference. The East is literally built on older bones, and you can feel that sense of history, of things being set in stone. The West, though, it's always felt newer, like it's constantly reinventing itself. So, to really get why those foundations are so different, we gotta jump in the time machine. And I mean way back to the 1600s, before America was even, America. The whole story of the East Coast was basically forged by pure necessity. Think about it. You're building a city in the 1600s. You don't have cars, you don't have trains. Heck, most people don't even have a horse. So everything, and I mean everything, had to be built around the ports for trade, and it all had to be walkable. Your home, the market, the church, if you couldn't walk there, it might as well not exist. It wasn't a choice, it was survival.
And man, did this happen fast. New York pops up in 1624. Boston follows just 6 years later. Philadelphia in 1682. So get this, by the time anyone even thought about signing the Declaration of Independence, these cities were already over 100 years old. They had these incredibly deep roots, which is why you get that dense, tangled historic feel.
And with all that history came the big institutions. I mean, Harvard was founded in 1636, Yale in 1701. This wasn't just about buildings. It created a whole society built on tradition, on generational wealth, on a clear social ladder. Who you were, who your family was, that stuff really, really mattered.
All right, so you've got the East Coast, all established and buttoned up. But at the same time, this new idea starts brewing, this call of the West. And heading west back then, whew, boy, it wasn't just like moving to a new town. It was a massive, roll-the-dice, life-or-death gamble.
And this whole gamble was powered by one seriously powerful idea: manifest destiny. This was the belief, this conviction, really, that Americans were meant to expand all the way to the Pacific. It was seen as inevitable, even God's will. And that idea lit a fire under the whole westward push.
And, I mean, you just can't overstate how brutal this journey was. We're talking months of crossing deserts, climbing mountains, facing who knows what. A lot of people, up to 10%, didn't even make it. It wasn't like moving, it was like stepping off the edge of the map.
So you gotta ask, who in their right mind would take that risk? Well, it wasn't the folks who were happy and successful back east. The journey itself was like a giant filter. It pulled in the misfits, the dreamers, the people who had already failed once or twice, the ultimate risk takers. These were people choosing a chance at something new over the safety of the old world.
And then, 1848. One single event happens that just pours gasoline on this smoldering fire: gold. Someone finds gold at Sutter's Mill in California. And just like that, the gold rush was on, kicking off one of the biggest, fastest human migrations in American history. And the key thing to get here is the insane speed of it all. Just look at San Francisco. In 1848, it's this tiny little village, maybe 800 people. 2 years later, it's a boom town of 25,000. And people came from everywhere, not just the East Coast. So right from the get-go, the West Coast was this wild, multicultural mix.
Okay, so this brings us to the next huge difference between the two coasts: how the cities were actually built. See, the East was already locked into its old walkable design, but the West, it grew up right alongside some seriously game-changing technology.
It might surprise you, but cities like LA actually had amazing public transit back in the day. We're talking electric streetcars, huge regional rail lines. But the crucial difference was, these cities were still young and malleable when the automobile rolled onto the scene. They didn't have to deal with street patterns that were laid down centuries ago.
Honestly, this might be the simplest way to think about it. The East Coast was built for your feet. The West Coast was built for the car. And that one fundamental difference in their design DNA is why they feel so completely different even today. One was designed to be dense, the other was designed to sprawl.
So, let's recap. We've got different histories, different kinds of people moving there, and totally different city designs. Now let's see how all of that, plus a little geography, cooked up two totally distinct modern-day cultures.
The waves of immigration were totally different too. The East Coast's identity was largely shaped by wave after wave of European immigrants, and that's where you get those classic, dense ethnic neighborhoods.
The West, though, it was a magnet for people from Mexico, from Central America, from all across Asia and the Pacific. It was just a different kind of melting pot from the very start.
And you see this reflected in their economies, right? It's right there. The East is the capital of old money, finance, banking, and the culture that comes with it is more formal, more rigid. The West, that's the kingdom of new money. We're talking tech, Hollywood, industries that are famous for being casual, flexible, and, let's be honest, a little chaotic. This even gets into how people interact, or at least the stereotypes. You've probably heard this one, right? East Coasters are not nice, but kind, meaning they might be blunt, maybe a little abrasive, but if your car breaks down, they'll be the first ones to help. West Coasters are stereotyped as nice, but not kind. Super polite on the surface, but maybe a little more focused on their own thing. It's a huge generalization for sure, but you can see how it connects back to that idea of tight-knit communities versus lone wolf pioneers.
And you absolutely cannot talk about the coasts without talking about the weather. It's a huge deal. The East Coast is basically this giant weather battleground with clashing air masses that give you those dramatic four seasons and some seriously wild storms. The West Coast, on the other hand, is kind of shielded by the Pacific Ocean and all those mountains, which makes for a much milder, more stable climate. And that definitely changes how you live your life.
But look, for all these differences, the history, the people, the weather, you gotta remember this one crucial thing. These two coasts are the twin engines of the American economy. You've got Wall Street, the center of global finance, and you've got Silicon Valley, the heart of global tech. They couldn't be more different, but they are both absolutely indispensable.